of background on Alameda Mosaic, our mission is to provide a forum for families of African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students to share their voices, become more knowledgeable about district resources, and how to navigate the complex educational landscape in order to advocate more effectively for their students. Our goal is to create a supportive environment that uplifts families, promotes their healing, and focuses on equity, inclusion, and ensuring equal access to high-quality educational opportunities for African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students. And here are some of our core values. And I'll just touch on the first four, that family engagement is a critical component of student achievement. We aim to create safe spaces for difficult conversations, foster family empowerment and influence through education, and disrupt inequitable outcomes. And lastly, we really aim to disrupt traditional power structures by leveraging the strength of families and allies. Our group is different and unique. We operate in power as a collective, and we are trying to leverage that power to influence change, both cultural and systemic, on behalf of our African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students. So with that, I'm going to pass the torch to Tanae and Shamar. Thank you both so much for sharing about the African American Family Leadership Team. Please, by all means, take it away.
Awesome. So I will start and I will run quickly to Tanae because she has a brief presentation and wants to solicit input from the families that are here tonight. So I'm Shamar Edwards. For those who didn't hear my introduction, I'm new to the district. It's my second year, but I'm the Senior Director of Equity. Also want to just acknowledge that I am here and this role was created because of a lot of the advocacy from members that are participating tonight. So it is not lost on me about that. And so that's my commitment. It's the personal life that I live, it's the professional life that I live. So glad to be here. I am a resource. I also have a coworker, Shantae Kroom. You probably get emails from us, but we are really just trying to bridge with our African American families, our Black families, our multi-ethnic families. And so lots of outreach efforts to just connect. It's a long history in Alameda, that bridge not being there. And so we have to start somewhere, and all of these efforts is what kind of starts to build in that direction. I am not able to do this alone, so partnering with Caroline and Alameda Mosaic and other parents and teachers and staff that are interested in this work is certainly the goal. So shout out to the principals here. I see you, Miss Matthews. Thank you for getting your teams here. I see you, Renata, getting some families here. We appreciate you all. Tanae is going to speak a little bit about our goals for this year and what we would like to offer to our families as a way of empowering you, giving you tools to support your families, advocate at your school sites, advocate at the district level. And so we want to offer you an idea and then get some input back from you. So again, thank you for being here, and I am an email, call away. So with that, I will put you in the hands of Tanae. Thank you.
Again, my name is Tanae. Yes, I am the Executive Director of High Expectations. Yes, I have a contract with the districts to support primarily the CSACE work or the scholar family work is how I'm brought in. My heart is really about making sure that all students are successful and looking at who schools and school districts are effectively supporting, and in terms of looking at data, where there's room to grow, where there's areas for growth. And so for Alameda Unified School District, in really identifying there is room to grow in terms of supports and resources and engagement of African American families or families of African American students. I'm really excited to be a part of this. I am a mother first and foremost, and I have two African American young men who said they survived school, and they just said it talking during Thanksgiving one year, and in the kitchen, and not even talking to us, they were talking to themselves, and it just struck me. And so I, as a teacher, I learned how valuable families are to achievement. I started with my youngest in San Leandro at a school where there weren't a lot of African American students. My son was really shy, really kind of distanced from his own education, and the teacher said that he was far below basic in reading, which struck me because I'm a literacy coach. I train other teachers on literacy practices, and my own child was, when they did the assessments, the bottom 10 for second grade, then third grade, same, and really just struggling through fourth grade. And I decided that I wanted to connect with other African American families. I wanted to see, is this a trend across the school? And looking at data, I saw that it was around our African American children, as particular African American boys. And so I just started bringing families together. We brought food, we talked. It ended up being this thing where we had this safe space to really just talk about who we were, our hopes and dreams for our kids, what we could do alongside the school as they were improving their practices and supports for African American students. What could we do on our own that guarantees that is culturally relevant and all of that? We did field trips with our kids and brought in speakers and tracked our kids, our students' achievement, and really decided for ourselves, there's a lot that we can do in community. We set collective goals. And so that is what I want to talk to you all about tonight, is what would that look like in Alameda? Since that years ago, we've done this across school districts, but it's not a program. It's us deciding together what families feel is best for their students. So really, it's about families coming together to ensure the success of African American students. The goals around that I am proposing, right, is really looking at increasing achievement of all African American students. We define what achievement is. Obviously, it's academic achievement, but it's so much more than that. And really, what is important for African American families within Alameda Unified School District, and really looking at setting collective goals, which is such a powerful way of doing it. Providing a safe space for the African American families and school community to discuss the education of their children, increasing family engagement amongst African American families. And so we started off at my son's school, and typically when we are engaged in schools, it starts off with a couple of families, and then other families say, oh, that's a safe space. I really want to be a part of that. Advocating for programs and services that will increase preparation for college and career. I know Alameda Mosaic is deeply invested in this, and so I'm really looking for opportunities, looking forward to doing this alongside Alameda Mosaic. You're doing this. This is not something new in that regard at all. Increasing the capacity of school staff to engage and support African American students and families. That is, I have been doing professional development throughout the district and continuing with the scholar schools, and then providing families with all kind of tools and resources to support learning. The district is working on strategies that ensure the success of students. Alameda Mosaic is looking at systemic change, policy change, advocacy at a really high level. This is just really looking at how do we, school-based family groups, right? So we would talk as a group in terms of across the district, families of African American students, and then also break into smaller groups by school and say, how can we work alongside the school to ensure success? I keep having in my head my kids coming home and saying, my teacher said this was fine, and me saying, I don't care what your teacher said. For me, you got to do it this way, right? And it really is about me bringing those funds of knowledge, that wealth to the table. And so, and I'm going to stop and ask you guys your thoughts in a second. So really, so I should have started off by saying there are opportunities for us to come together in school groups to really, again, think about how are we at our school site working alongside the school to support the success of African American students. Imagine meetings, and there are right now opportunities for 5 meetings throughout the year, right? And the components of those meetings would be community building. I'm hoping to do these in person as much as possible because I think that that's really powerful. Information sharing, right? And so those tools and resources that you then can share back with other families at the school site, and then advocacy. What do you feel like is needed at school sites to support African American students, really advocating for that on a district level? And then what I'm really excited about is the opportunity to actually do a project or an activity, taking it back to your school site and doing that on the ground level. So there's the district level advocacy work happening with Alameda Mosaic, and then it's supported with site level African American or families of African American students, I should say, really thinking about what is it that we would dream about seeing at our schools. Some of those projects and activities with families that I've had the pleasure to work with is, we want to have more books in the classrooms, right, that represent our students. And so that's a project that they take on. Families at my son's school and schools in the same district, we all met up on the weekends and went on field trips and talked to our students about their history and the history of other cultures and those pieces. And so that whatever that project is, that's what you all would create. So I'm going to pause for a second and just let you ask a couple of questions, and then I have an opportunity that I want to share that's coming up.
This is Kimball. I think it's more of maybe it's like more of a comment, but you can just comment.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's great.
So this is really good. I think the only thing that I feel like is a gap for me, and this is just my personal connection right now, Ruby, trying to infiltrate the system. So when I first joined Ruby Bridges, I was like, I'm gonna be on the school site council because I feel like that I can affect change and I can work directly with the principal and other wonderful people who are in this meeting today. And I was like, I'm not gonna worry about PTA. And then I started seeing how much PTA is involved. And as you move up, for my daughter's middle school, junior jets, oh my goodness, they're doing so much that they're having impact. And so when I went to the back to school event and I saw who was volunteering at PTA, I realized nobody looks like me. So then I'm getting in, I'm hey, we should write these grants. And so I just wrote this grant, and it's about targeting African American students and Latinx students. I'm gonna call it out because this is what I'm about. Mm-hmm. And it's oh, I don't know about that. And so anyway, try to make this clear and concise. That first slide, not the last slide, but the slide before. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you can pop it up real quick.
Oh, sure.
This one, it says increase capacity of school staff, and it should be school staff or like those other influencers, right? Like PTA, right? School site council that's not just school staff that have huge impacts on these schools. And then the next slide, if you can and then the advocacy piece, I think you're describing that, but to me, it's my advocacy for me is I want to get white allies on my side. I need folks to help, and I need them to see the world. So we're talking at the school about some things. I'm I can get folks to programs. You just got to serve them food. It ain't a mystery. But if you're not thinking that way, I don't know. All right, I'm gonna stop there.
No. That is so powerful what you said, and that is the type of thinking. One, you're talking about strength in numbers, and my husband and I felt very isolated at this school. Even though there were plenty of African American families, we felt isolated until we actually came together. I know that since you're talking about Ruby, that Ms. Farr is already thinking about, African American parent leadership, and looking at the needs and then coming together and saying, let's provide that together. Let's provide that in a way that represents our students. At my school, it meant that I realized I needed to be on PTA. And it wasn't something I was super excited about because it just didn't feel culturally relevant to me. But my child needed to see my face there. And so that could be considered an activity. How do we increase the visibility of African American families at school sites? Any other questions? And then I'm going to show you something and then get your feedback in a way.
Actually, I had one other thing to say.
Of course.
Piggybacking on what you were talking about as far as with the PTA. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm new to the district, so I signed up for the PTA for that reason. And I attended the first meeting. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name who was just speaking before, but
Kimball.
there was no one like me at the meeting, at that first meeting. I was the only brown person to be seen. At the end, there was someone who showed up, I think, at the meeting, but it was at the playground at Ruby Bridges, and there was other families. And looking back, maybe I could have done something. I could have announced to the families who were using the playground that they could come and attend, but nobody did things like that. Those are the activities that we kind of have to look at, like to increase that participation, because I'm sorry, I don't know the other parent who was speaking, but she made a really good point about it's not just about what's actually going in this, the school staff, it's what's going around. And there's easy way, not easy, but they don't take many resources to get the involvement. It could be something just asking the other families that were around. Yeah. Parents were still there for soccer games. They were still activities, and they could have been included in the conversation because they're the ones who are deciding the activities that were going to be for the school. And like how you were saying, Ms. Weller, I signed up for the PTA. I don't necessarily want to be on the PTA. I can say that openly with you guys. Like it wasn't my first choice, but I knew that it was important for my daughters to see me there, and for the other staff, and everybody else to see that there are parents and we are involved in our children's education, and we are, we're just as involved as they are, and my daughter is only first grade, and she was so excited to start the new school because it was Ruby Bridges, just even the name Ruby Bridges. She was like, Mommy, she was a little girl just like me. She was, why don't we do more activities? I'm sure there's other things that are going on at the school that I don't know since I'm new. Why don't we do more? The little girl was just like me. Are we going to meet her? Are we going to do this? Everybody needs to, did you know that she's still alive? She was learning about it. She was asking me to read her stories. We have a book. I don't really know what the point of what I was talking about now.
No, that's power. It's powerful.
Like those are the points that, she's 6 and she was just like, we can teach other kids. I don't know everybody do they know everything about her, and she has a school named after her, and do you think I could have a school named after me? Do you think I could do different things? I'm like, yeah, you can do great things. You can do big things. Look, if you just keep up, do your best, the encouragement part, because they notice what's around them,
Yeah.
They notice that there's not people who look like them, and they comment, Anyway, that's enough of me babbling.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Khadijah and Noor, do you mind if I share one more slide and then come back to you, and then because I want to make sure that I'm...
No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
But keep your hand up, don't lower it. While I'm talking, I hope this works. Oh shoot, is it too small? So this is an opportunity where we can come together and really spend, oh no, it works. Really spend some quality time. Imagine each school having a table full of families of African-American students coming together at a retreat-like setting on a Saturday, which I know is not wildly popular, but it's just a great way to set aside time from 10 to 2. And, talking about our hopes and dreams, sharing our thoughts about how the schools can support African-American families. And for me, the most powerful part is designing that activity. And when I say a project, or it could be as simple as, let's increase the presence of African-American families on the PTA. Let's figure out ways to create more moments where students are learning about Ruby Bridges and other amazing African-American contributors, and helping them understand that they too can and are expected to achieve amazing things in this world, right? And so the October 22nd is our kickoff. and only our kickoff if folks like you say this is something that we want. And so, and then the other ones would be meetings where we'd come together and you'd get support and resources for whatever your project is. I've been doing this a long time. It started off with my own baby, and I've been doing it for the past 15 years in schools. So now I'm going to stop and ask questions. I'm not going to stop my screen, but I wanted just to hear from you. One, what kind of things would you want to discuss? What kind of things are really important to you? And then what questions do you have? So Noor and then Khadijah. And then that's it for me but you guys are right now using that bar and you're registering. Yay. Go ahead, Noor.
Okay, I'm just going to mention real quick that as a teacher for English learners at my school, Ruby Bridges, for 10 years, I do feel so proud. When I do teach small groups from kindergarten to 5th grade. So I myself feel so proud when I talk about Miss Ruby. And answering your question, yes, we have her every year at 5th grade graduation. She comes, and it's been always an awesome day. And yes, kinder kids keep asking her, how come you still alive? when she asked them to ask her anything. I am so proud. I have her picture in my classroom, and all my English learners, whenever we have time and we have a Ruby Bridges Day, that we talk about her, and I keep always mention to them, you are different, but don't worry, you belong to this school community. And as a mother, look at Miss Ruby, she was a little kid. She was different, and she is different, like in her own way. So we're so proud, and I am so proud to work. I've been a teacher for 25 years, 16 years in my country, and now 10 years at Ruby. I am so proud to belong to this school after her name and under the leadership of Miss Far Matthew. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Khadijah.
Hello. I just want to say I watched Ruby Bridges get built. I literally lived across the street. I saw it. I couldn't believe. I said, the school's not going to be finished. It's not going to be finished. And guess what? It was finished on time for that fall. I couldn't believe it. It felt like they started 3 months and all of a sudden there was a school. I want to say my kids all went to Ruby Bridges, and the very first time she came to Ruby Bridges, we have pictures. So I feel really inspired by parents that have kids in elementary school right now and like are going to Ruby Bridges. It was a great experience for my family. So I'm encouraged by that. I just have like a lot of, I know that like, I don't even know if like I'm even supposed to be on this meeting. I'm just being really honest because I see elementary, right? And my kids in high school. So I feel like at different levels, there are things that are commonalities of things that like you're, navigating for your child. But there's, there are some things that are commonalities, but then they're kind of different as you move through elementary, middle, and high. But in terms of like the network of what parents know and what they don't know is so important. Like I worked in schools for almost 20 years, so I have that experience, but I feel like a lot of parents don't know like what they can do to get movement when things are happening for their child. And I want to tell you that these ladies that work on equity, they're for real. I just need to say that. I'm not going to go into things that we've gone through, but it's so important for our families to have an advocate and to have a network. And so as you're working to like build out and working with families to maybe do more focus groups around this, like, I think it's going to be really key to think about the different levels and what people are going through. Even at the district level, just trying to break through like barriers is like difficult, right? When you're just trying to do a simple thing. You fill out a form, you submit the form, you just have the expectation it'll move through the process. But you can make all kinds of assumptions for the reason why that's not happening for your child, right? And so I'm just thinking like bigger. I really want us to think unlimited in terms of what is created, because collaborating and having groups at the different sites, but I think at the district level, where we're thinking about advocacy on the district level, and then there also being somebody that is accountable for that, right? Accountability matters when it comes to equity. And so like there needs to be more teeth in that, in terms of like whatever people want to use as creating this strategic plan, right? Like, okay, these are our efforts, but then how do we make sure that at the district level that there is somebody that actually has the power to say, oh yeah, no, that's not happening. We're going to do it this way, right? Like there has to be somebody at that level. Otherwise, you're kind of spinning your wheels and creating things that, kind of get stuck somewhere, because the people that have the power don't have the same intentionality you do. So, so there's just a lot of things going through my head. I was like writing stuff, like when I was looking at your list, just thinking about all the things I've been through, having, 3 kids go through this Alameda system. And even though we're trying to break through, right, some things, those barriers are still there.
Absolutely.
And so,
sorry. I'm
no, that's mainly what I want to say is like, I would like to see not only like these satellite, like, different schools have their own like satellite groups, but there be some kind of overarching group that can make decisions. In my work, I work at a hospital. We have a patient advocacy group or advisory group, really. They tell us what to do. We have to present stuff to them. And they're like, okay, yeah, that doesn't work and they tell us. And then we're like, oh, okay, then maybe we shouldn't do that. We should try this. So there needs to be some level of that commitment from the district. Not just like creating an equity department and not giving that department power, right? To really make an impact and be agents of change and actually make people accountable for that. So that's my thoughts. I'm sorry. I know I said a lot, so.
No, it's super powerful. And those goals are just starting points. They will not be the actual goals. We need to co-create those. So thank you for reminding me about that. And I wrote down everything you said.
Thank you.
All right, Caroline, I want to be respectful of time.
Thank you so much, Tanae. Really appreciated your presentation.
Thank you, you too.
It is my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Yusuf Muhammad from the Phoenix Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. Yusuf, thank you so much for being here tonight and for hanging in there with us. I appreciate you. Yeah. I always like to start from the beginning. So I'd love to kind of hear your story about how you came to be where you are. What made you decide that you wanted to teach and then eventually become a principal? And what inspired you and motivated you to get to this point?
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. It's really nice listening and just learning about your school community and the work that you're doing for the sake of children, right? It's really a beautiful, I know it seemed like it was long, but I was listening and absorbing. I almost felt like I was there with you guys. Caroline, thank you. I don't know if they know that I've known you for over 25 years. We met as 18-year-olds in a college in upstate New York, and it was cold that whole year. But it's so great to see you, sister, and I have to visit again soon. But, I decided to be a teacher, that I wanted to be a teacher in the 5th grade. In New York City, 1980s was the crack era, and if anyone remembers when crack came on the scene, I mean, it was mind-blowing. I remember in 4th grade, students, walking to school and seeing crack vials in the street and students bringing needles, from the street into the school. And it was just a mess. But I decided very, very early on to that I wanted to go into education because I had teachers and my principal in particular support me when I lost my dad when I was in the 5th grade. So that moment and the support that I received from them, I knew that at an early age that I wanted to give back, and I decided to go to a school for teachers. And so it's always what I wanted to do. I love history, and I have a gift with teenagers. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm like the cold whisperer for teenagers. I can get them right. But I never wanted to be a principal. I never wanted to be a principal. I was a U.S. history teacher, an African American studies teacher, and you know, one day I just got a nudge from some people older than me to push me to into school leadership. And I hesitated for a number of years. And after my 8th year of teaching, I decided to apply to a program called New Leaders for New Schools. It was a national program that trains teachers to become principals in 1 year. And it wasn't until the application process, I think it was the second or third interview, where they had us come into a big space, and it was the life of a principal, the day in the life of a principal, and it was hard. And they put us in all these scenarios, and we had to compete with other candidates. And in one particular scenario, they really pushed my buttons, and I started to tear up because it was about equity, and it was about racial justice, and it was about things that I was always passionate about, and the opportunity to lead a school to help really change, the paradigm for a lot of our students, the neediest students. It really touched me, and I realized at that moment that this was what I wanted to do. And since 2011, I've been in school administration. This is my 11th year as a high school principal. I started off in New York City and then moved with my family to Atlanta in 2016. And I've been here ever since. And it's been the toughest experience for many reasons. It's been rewarding as well. And I'm at 45 years old now, I'm in a very different space as I think about the principalship in the work than I was when I was 34 when I started. So it's really been a great journey, and I learned a lot through it. And I'm thankful that I took that leap, but it has not been easy.
Thank you so much. Wow, that is quite the journey. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about reflecting on your time with your students, how you encourage teachers and families to help students feel seen, valued, and supported? And what would you say some of the difference makers were to help students stay motivated and rise to their potential?
It's interesting because I was listening to the conversation earlier, and Atlanta's a very different place, right? And New York is a different place. So in New York, you have just diversity. So I'm used to different people in my space. Atlanta is all Black. I mean, it's all Black, where in New York City, we had to campaign to fight to get Black male teachers, and there were very little male or Black principals in New York cities. In Atlanta, students have been raised and they went through a whole school system with Black teachers, Black administrators, right? So what the difference in Atlanta is class, right? But it's still a very different a big racial divide, because white students in Atlanta still outperform Black students. White students still outperform our Latino students. So we still have that component, but within Black schools in the South, it's just very different. And I'm still pretty touched by how many poor kids raised in Atlanta stay poor. Right? It's people who visit places like Atlanta from outside who succeed, right? And live this life. So when in working with students in Atlanta who are used to having, Black faces in their schools, I had to really think differently about how to move them, how to push them. And it's the same thing that you guys said in your earlier conversation. I heard community, I heard relationships, I heard safe spaces, right? And it's really the same thing. When I entered schools here, my first year as a high school principal here, we had riots almost every week. Kids would get off the bus and start fighting. Right? What the school was a reflection of the community, and the community was in chaos. Right? We had gang violence everywhere. We had a lot of shootings. I've only been here 6 years, and I lost 11 students to gun violence in the 6 years. I lost 2 students in June. All right. It's 5 of my students were shot this past school year. It's a really tough space, right? So the relationship part is so important. When I think about relationships in schools and building that sense of community, that safe space, it starts with the adults. And it starts with the adults, for me, being able to be their authentic selves, right? How can you be your authentic self in a school space so kids can connect with you in a real way? Because our kids know within 5 or 10 seconds if you are authentic or not. And if you're not, it's problematic. And I'll give you an example. Last Friday, we had a young lady in my school who was being bothered or bullied by another young lady. And she broke down because she lost her dad the year before. And she came into my office and I hugged her, and told her it's going to be okay. And she cried and started talking to me about the pain she feels around losing her dad and how close they were. And I sat her down and I said, listen, I understand because I've been there. And this is what I did. And I was very real with her. I said, I lost my dad and my children lost their mom only 5 years ago. So I understand, and I connected with them and gave her my real authentic experience to motivate her and to give her lessons that I learned. And there's no conversation like that in sort of principal handbook, right? Or playbook. You don't go to school to learn how to truly connect with kids, right? In many cases, in many teaching programs and many school leadership programs, you learn how to kind of monitor kids, right? You're taught how to inspect what you expect, right? You're not really taught to how to build relationships. And in schools like mine, and in your schools, right? Our kids need our authentic selves more than ever, especially in these days. We're just not taught how to do that. So I think that's kind of was my trick to it. I became a principal, but I also became a person first, and I wasn't afraid to lose my so-called authority because of that. And that's helped. So that comes with, after school, making space to play basketball with the kids, encouraging my teachers to come into the cafeteria and eat with the students, right? Encouraging them to connect with the students and let them know who they are, their life story, their history, and what brought them to this space. And so being authentic to me is a huge part of building those important relationships to motivate, our kids. You have to be brave though, Caroline. You have to be brave to do that, right? Because everybody could do that. Some people have to have this posture that I am the adult, right? And I'm speaking from a high school perspective. You're the adult, but you're human too. We are all human. We all suffer. We all have been through trauma. So if you can connect with our kids in that space, you build lifelong commitments to learning, to a partnership. I mean, it's everything, and that's kind of what I've done over the last few years to help build community in my school.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Yusuf. That is so powerful, and you're so right that it does take a tremendous amount of courage to be authentic at that level. So I'm so glad you shared that. I'd love to get your perspective on how you and the staff that you've worked at the schools that you've been at have helped your students build confidence and given them the tools and resilience to navigate the world that we live in.
Yeah. Our students have to see themselves in the work, right? So there's some technical things and some adaptive things, right? I think exposure is really, really important, right? For especially in Atlanta, where we have this huge divide, this racial divide, but also this economic divide. Getting our kids exposed to life outside of the city, right? In my context. So every year I take my students camping, 3 days and 2 nights. I sleep in the cabin with 9th graders. It is an experience, y'all, right? We do team building activities, low ropes, high ropes. We challenge the students to do things that they didn't think they can do, but they relied on each other to do it. And you created that sense of community. I'm telling you, when you take students outside of their normal space with teachers and administrators, when you come back, it's a totally different experience, right? They can connect with you in a different way, and you build that kind of trust. But the hard part is, students don't control the culture of a school. I believe adults do. Right? Adults are the ones who I have to continue to work on, to engage, to support, to hold accountable. I have a meeting at 8:30 tomorrow morning with my faculty and staff because things are getting a little bit loose, And so I like to just, when before things happen, I need to have a conversation so we could be on the same page and constantly remind our adults about our mission and our vision and why we do what we do. Push our adults to to communicate their why for being in this role and constantly doing that kind of work, because it's not that the kids will fall in line when the adults are on the same page. But cultural relevance is something that's talked about a lot. Our kids don't see themselves in the curriculum. They don't see themselves in history. They don't see themselves even in the present world. We have a few outliers, but I always said, if we I'm in DC a lot to see my daughter, and if Black people disappeared, you wouldn't know that they built and designed DC, right? And that the contributions that African Americans and other groups have had on the development of this country, you wouldn't necessarily know if you just went to school every day and you just lived, right? So making sure that our voices are present, that I love that there's a Ruby Bridges school. That's so amazing, right? I love that. That's really, really important. And even in a place like Atlanta, the home of the civil rights movement, we have kids who are unaware of who came before them, of the sacrifices their ancestors made, of the contributions different groups made to world history. And so I think that's an important component. And you can do that on the hallway walls. You can be intentional about town halls and celebrations you have in the school. You can expose the kids through trips, and you can teach the adults, because we assume that adults know, right? And that adults didn't go through an education system that prioritized Eurocentric values. They did. We all did, right? But we have to be a disruptor in that space and share all that happened so you can motivate the kids. And from my perspective, and Caroline knows me, she knows I'm a big history guy, and I'm like, let's go. But there's inspiration in the struggle for freedom, right? If you think about even the transatlantic slave trade, people resisted, oppression. People resist every single day. And so teaching our kids that there's inspiration in our history from all groups, I think is a powerful motivator to keep them going to fight for their dreams. So I said a lot, Caroline. Did I miss something? I can go on. I can go forever. So you got to stop me.
And I could listen forever. Thank you. What would you, when I think about your journey as a principal, particularly during your time at Carver and the way the progression that campus made, it really speaks to you and your work and how much you care for students. What advice would you give to parents who are trying to advocate for their schools, for their students, at a school where maybe the principal doesn't get an A+ grade, and especially in a situation where the students' needs are not being met? What advice would you give to families about that?
They have to advocate, right? And they have to be present. They have to demand a quality education. You know what? White parents demand it. And I'm being very real, right? Especially in a place like Atlanta. If they don't feel that the leadership is doing what they're supposed to do, they get out there, they vote for board members, they make their voices heard. Unfortunately, a lot of our parents don't believe that they have the agency, right? Or even the literacy to project whatever they feel. But also, that's really, really big. I see other cultures, I see them do that, and I see them find success in that. But sometimes we don't feel like we have a voice, but we have a voice. We vote for board members, right? So I would say parents should be present, volunteer, but also understand, and I have to look at it from both sides, because being a principal is really, really hard, right? Everything is on your shoulders, and I have to empathize with principals who are still learning, who are, may not be there right now, but they're growing as well, because everyone grows and gets better over time. But in education, there's not that time. Everyone wants their kids to succeed right now. So I see it both ways, but I would encourage parents who have the literacy, who have the knowledge and wherewithal to support other parents, to really form a strong PTA where they can, address the principal, address the administration, and feel comfortable in doing that. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, because I am a principal and I've been in those kind of spaces. But the parents have to understand that they have agency and they have a voice, and they're the actual ones who, they don't run the school, but they have great influence. And every child, if they feel like they're not getting the education that they need, parents have a right to be activists as well.
Thank you so much. I think this is going to be my last question, because I want to leave enough time for Q&A.
Okay.
When you think about, again, the progress that particularly the schools where you've attended, where you've seen a tremendous growth, both in student achievement, showing up in graduation rates, and et cetera.
Mhm.
What would you say was required of families for those turnaround changes to happen?
Yeah. Families have to be part of the school. I mean, they had to be present and they had to be advocates for the school. In my case, I couldn't rely on families that much because the families that I served were failed by the same system that schools attend. Right. I mean, that's a real thing, right? I had to rely more on alumni. I had to rely on those few parent advocates who had a voice to support other families. So we did things like we brought families in to teach them how to support their kids with us, our state exams, which are called milestones. So how do you support your kids at home? But our parents couldn't read. Right? Our parents in many cases didn't have electricity, didn't have. So we had to create a school that served more like a community center as well. So we had, for instance, on the campus, Atlanta Volunteers Lawyers Association, volunteer lawyers that help parents deal with landlords who, maybe trying to kick them out, right? Or any kind of criminal justice issues that they were dealing with. We had a group of therapists on our campus throughout the whole school day to support parents and families. We had a food bank, right? We had a clothing drive. We had various things that normally a school wouldn't be responsible for. We had to have in order to support the community so the parents could feel like school is a safe space. Because for many parents, school is not a safe space. There's many negative feelings when it comes to schools because they were failed by those schools. So schools had to transform, and I was able to transform Carver High School, which is a high school that I just came from, into more of a wraparound, holistic, really support for families and communities where they can come in and feel like they have a voice, they have a safe space, they can learn, and they can get really those needs met. Because you can't get parents to participate if they're hungry, if they're worried about paying rent, right? If they're worrying about the basic necessities of living. So in many cases, schools have to kind of transform, and many schools are doing that into that kind of space so we can have real parent input and they can feel like they're loved and supported.
Thank you so much. This has been such a powerful experience. I want to open it up to questions. If you have any questions for Yusuf, please raise your hand. Nora, I think I saw your hand up before.
It was by mistake, but
okay.
I really feel like now I have a question. So I represent the Arabic community, which is like the third biggest language at the district here in Alameda.
Wow.
And I was thinking to email you, but let me ask right now because I can't wait. We can offer donations for those families. Is there any program you have like clothing or food? I can have a donation from moms, from parents. Most of them, like they have stores, like I'm talking about the Arabic families especially, and we can offer it to those families. That will be a great help, I think. So do you accept donations?
Oh, definitely. And thank you so much. That's so gracious. It really is, it's so needed in so many ways. And we do have some supports. But I tell you, I have kids who sleep on floors. I have kids who, we constantly come out of our pockets to put money in their pocket or find jobs. It's really a space I've never experienced before, but the kids they still get up every day and come to school, but any support for the schools would be wonderful. We do have a food pantry every Wednesday. We have families come into our school and we give away food. Today we had a big food drive. And so we work with various partners to provide those kind of needs, but by all means, of course, we'll share email addresses and that'll be great. Thank you.
I will sooner than you think.
Okay,
thank you.
Khadija, please.
I just want to say kudos to you, the great work you're doing with these families.
Well, thank you.
It's amazing. And I know it's like, you probably don't get appreciated enough, but I just want to, just say, God bless you and just keep up the good work. I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I feel like you just like doing this and talking to us, like we have different, like you were saying, the different communities have different types of needs. And I was just thinking about, because I've worked in schools similar in a big city. And so I'm just wondering about one of the things I remember in some of my trainings and some of the stuff that we did, some of the service learning stuff for your students. I'm just wondering about that and like getting them involved in projects that they really want to work on and like help their community with. So I just want to know if there's like opportunities like that you're also helping create for them.
Yeah, we were able to, at my last school, we brought in the, I don't know if you heard of P-TECH program, Pathways in Technology. And it's actually a work-based learning program that partners the school with the local community college and an industry partner. And kids actually graduate in 6 years with a free associate's degree while getting mentorship and first dibs at jobs with that industry partner. And it's a powerful program that started in Brooklyn and is expanded across the country and even internationally. And I was able to bring that to the school that I just left, and it's in the second year right now and it's going well. So work-based learning programs, programs to help students, get internships and exposure is really important. But I also struggle, right? Because, my oldest daughter graduated from a private school in Atlanta. Right. And I give my daughters the options, what do you want? I'm here to support you. And she wanted to go to this fancy school, right? That costs $29,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And I said, we just lost my wife the year before. And that's 2018. I said, whatever my daughter wants, I'm gonna do. Right. But over those 4 years, I watched what my daughter received and I was blown away about the rigor, the level of expectations. She told me last week, she said, Dad, I got an A on my first paper at Howard. What, an A? Caroline, you remember our first paper in college? We didn't get A's, right? How do you get an A in college in your first? But she was prepared. They didn't have work-based learning. They had a college atmosphere in high school that prepared them to be successful wherever they went, in whatever school that she got accepted to. And I struggled with that. That kind of the private school versus public school thing. Are we preparing our kids for trades while other schools are preparing kids to lead the world? And, it's something that my second daughter, my 14-year-old, is in 9th grade in a public school because she didn't want to go to a private school. She's not the private school type. She's ready to fight somebody, right? But and so I struggle with that, that project-based learning is something that we did as well. We had our kids create projects designed to support the community. We actually went out to San Diego. We learned the project-based learning gold standard model through the schools that they have down there and brought it to our school. And while we're doing this in the school and we're preparing our kids to give presentations, to work on team building, to develop these sort of non-cognitive skills that push them along, other schools doing the same thing. Are they getting a different kind of education? So something that I'm honestly struggling with.
I just want to say that the kids that you have can actually pick a project. There was some kids, they wanted to do haircuts. Yeah. They want to do free haircuts, simple things they could do in their community, that can support picking up, helping somebody take their groceries. We'll create a network for that. They can figure out what they want to do, but I just feel like that actually helps them to kind of see themselves bigger and more important, right, in the world and more unlimited because they are. Yeah. So I was just thinking about that because I know that can be a breakthrough of a kid that's living in poverty and struggling, right? Sometimes taking care of people, and then dealing with other things that are happening, being able to do something that they feel like they can value and contribute actually is a breakthrough.
I've seen it and I've experienced that. I just struggle with other kids getting that, other kids getting a different level of rigor. But I believe in that. And I believe that, education that's connected to your community is more important than anything. It's just something that I'm kind of trying to figure out, Yeah, thank you for that.
Any other questions, reflections? Okay. Well, Yusuf, thank you so much. I know we're getting on 11 o'clock where you are, so I'm going to let you go. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time this evening.
No, I appreciate you too. And I definitely want to visit. It's school leadership, just to close out. Again, Caroline, I didn't, if you knew me as 18 years old, I know you never imagined me as a principal. I thought you were going to be a radio host because your voice is still amazing. And I don't mean to embarrass you, but you have that voice. But, it's, I've been through a lot, even, and when I try to teach younger principals, even though I don't look like I'm as old as I am. I've been doing this for a long time, and I see young principals under the pressure of having to perform, of district pressure. Meanwhile, they're raising families. And I told young principals, if I could take back anything, I wouldn't be in my living room with my laptop sending emails out while my wife is here, my daughters are here, and not being fully engaged. So I encourage people if you want to be a strong principal, you want to have strong schools, I encourage my teachers to take vacations, to go home. I don't send emails after 5 o'clock. I don't send emails on the weekend. I really believe in that work-life balance, because losing my wife changed everything for me. And it made me really appreciate life a lot more, but also respect the fact that principals are humans too. And to be a superhero every day is exhausting. So that balance is important. But at the same time, that sense of urgency for our students to succeed is so important. It's so valuable. So that balance is something that I can continuously work with as I grow on this work. But I thank you guys for just being present, and I love what you guys are doing, and I hope to visit really, really soon, Caroline. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you
Right.
so much for taking time and being with us this evening. Really appreciate you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you. How you can get involved with Alameda Mosaic. We're looking for ambassadors who, if you are currently participating in a school or district meetings like ELAC or DLAC, PTA or DEI, or we just really need boots on the ground at different school sites that can share with us what's happening at the different school sites. We have a good cross-section of parents that are at school sites, but we're looking for more. So if you're interested in reporting out on all the cool things that are happening at your school site, or maybe where you see some gaps that we might be able to fill, or just develop a think tank on how to fill those gaps, please, we welcome you. We also would like to pass the mic. If you have a topic relevant to our mission, goals, and core values that you want to present on, or if you have a guest speaker in mind, this is your group, and we love, like I said, to pass the mic and share knowledge. And lastly, we're looking to expand our partnerships. So we're looking for volunteers who do community outreach or are interested in doing community outreach in coordination with different local organizations. So for example, if you already have an established or ongoing relationship with AEF, for example, or Boys and Girls Club or Girls Inc. or APC, we'd love for you to contact us and figure out how we can strengthen and expand our partnerships. And also, we're trying to form some subcommittees. We could definitely use some help on communications. So if you're great at making flyers, or if you're super great at social media, you post on Instagram regularly, we want to hear from you. If you are great at building newsletters and getting the word out about different things, we'd love to have your time and your support in that way. We are hopeful that we'll be able to dial into the conversations that began last year with AUSD senior leadership on curriculum. So we'd love to have folks participate in those conversations. And lastly, on event planning, we don't want this to just be all meetings on Zoom. We'd love to be able to do events within the community. And we're looking for not only people to help with the planning, but if you have, I guess this is part of planning as well, give us your ideas on what you'd like to see. What kind of events would you like to attend, and what can we do there? So some things we have coming up. October 7th through the 9th is Alameda Pride. I believe this is the first Pride event local to the city of Alameda, and there are various events and locations happening over the course of that weekend. So check out www.alamedapride.com if you're interested in that. Alameda Mosaic has been running a book club for a few months now in honor of Latinx Hispanic Heritage Month. Our book for October is In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. We're still looking for, I think we're going to do in person. We did in person for September, and it was phenomenal. So I'd like to do that again. It just has a different feel. So if you feel comfortable meeting in person and would like to join the book club, there's no obligation to even read the book. Just come and build community, enjoy the conversation, and meet other folks. You are welcome. And that's on October 18th at 7 p.m. Shamar and Tanae already talked about their family leadership team retreat on the 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the district office. And lastly, please save the date for October 24th. The North Region SELPA Community Advisory Committee is in the process of putting together a phenomenal literacy event. There's going to be a documentary screening and a panel discussion. I think the time is somewhere between 6 and 9 in Berkeley. I don't mean to be vague because the details are still coming together, and we're not at the point where we can make the specifics public just yet. But as soon as those details are ready to go, I will share them out. But what I can ask for the moment is if you could save that evening. It's definitely a worthwhile event to talk about literacy across the country, but particularly when it comes to Black and Brown students.
Hi, I just wanted to share with you guys a project that I've been working on diligently, which is with Alameda Power and Electricity to make sure that all people in Alameda, especially families that don't have access to internet, have it. And it has finally come to the Bay Area. Caroline, I sent you the information that we're going to be having a hub here in Alameda. So as many friends and families that you guys may know of that are having challenges with access or need extra boost for internet, please have them register. This is an opportunity for us to show the city that we actually do have families that need a better boost of internet. And I think I've sent it to Shamar, and I know I sent it to you, and I've been trying to post it all over because it is a number, but the number is unknown. And so we're just trying to reach as many people as we can to ensure that internet is available to our families.
Thank you so much, Renata. I appreciate that. And I will share that with this group. So thank you for that. And thank you, because you also reminded me that I forgot to ask if there are other events or other initiatives that you'd like to share, please do so now. Anything upcoming that you want to share with folks, or anything that, so the special education department is planning a family meet and greet for students receiving special education services. It was originally around Autism Acceptance Month, but then the planning kind of got away from that. And we decided to expand it more to really have a meet and greet among special education families, because depending on the circumstances, it can be quite isolating. And oftentimes those families don't interact, particularly across school sites. Like, you might know other families at your school of children who have IEPs or children that might be in a special day class, but across school sites, there isn't a lot of opportunity to network. So a family meet and greet is happening at Edison Elementary on October 15th from noon to 3, I believe. And I think Dr. Baines has been putting out some blurbs about that within his newsletter. So if you're in his directory, you may have received that already. But that's happening at Edison Elementary on October 15th. Thank you so much for the ping, Elizabeth. I appreciate it.
No problem. Actually, that kind of segues into something else too. So I am co-chairing ASPED this year, and I just had a meeting with Dr. Baines today, and he asked me, what is my main goal for the year? And I said, I have a lot of ideas, but my main goal is to connect parents. And I think what you just said, is really hard to connect with parents across school sites. So I pitched him to try and do Constella across the district for opt-in SPED directory. And that's going to be on the next steering committee agenda for us to discuss. So I feel like it'd be really powerful. Like, instead of adding yourself to a classroom, you could add yourself to a grade, a school site, a program, a disability. It could be amazing, because I feel like the biggest power is in connecting parents. So hopefully it goes through.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. I know we're running a little bit long and we lost some folks, and that's okay. I totally understand. I appreciate all of you for being here this evening. We're such a small group now that I think I'll just keep us together. Any reflections on what Shamar and Tanae had to say, or what Yusuf had to say, or just anything you want to share?
Yeah, I'd like to make a quick comment. I didn't feel necessary to, make the comment at the end, because, he had to go. It was 11 o'clock, as we know. But I just want to commend him 1,000% for what he's doing, being a principal, moving from, not only it's two things, I want to focus on him being a Black male and setting the example of what we don't see too often as people of color, particularly African Americans, a Black male teacher, not only teaching, then moving up to leadership or administration. because it brings me back to me remembering my middle school principal was a Black male. And that will stick in my head forever, and then that gave me great inspiration. And hey, we males, we Black males, we do lead, and we do things out there in the world. We make impacts in the world. And that made me feel responsible as a young man to do better, to set a good example, because that's what he demanded. And I know this gentleman here, Mr. Muhammad, he sets a great example. I mean, we can obviously tell by his speech and his energy and his examples, his work out there. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Carl. I deeply appreciate that. And you're right. I was thinking about it while you were talking. I want to say, I have to think about it some more, but I think the first time I had a Black male teacher was when I was in college. So that's pretty sad. So yeah. I can relate to what you were saying.